And in comes the luxury icebreaker, and they were all terrified. They all ran away because they were like, what is this thing? Is it going to stop? Is it going to keep going? Can she stop? And then we stopped, and it was a bit like landing on the moon because you're sailing through the ice into the village, and everyone kind of scattered away, but then they all came back to see the ship and to touch the ship and engage. And it was such an incredible experience.
Welcome to the Luxury Travel Innovators podcast. I'm your host, Adam Deflorian, founder and CEO of AZDS. Let's take off. Today I'm joined by Belinda Hindmarsh, Deputy CEO of Ponant Explorations Group. Belinda, thank you so much for joining me on Luxury Travel Innovators.
Thanks for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today.
It's wonderful. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about your background and how you became associated with Ponant?
Sure thing. It's a question I get quite often, as you can imagine. How does a Kiwi girl end up working for a French headquartered luxury travel company? So I grew up, as mentioned, in New Zealand. I was born in the South Island in Christchurch. And I think travel and exploration was in my DNA from the get-go. I come from a family of not travelers per se, but a lot of kind of geographical movement. My mother moved to New Zealand when she was 16 years old from the Netherlands. She took a Greek ship out there, 6 weeks to arrive with her mother, who was born in Sumatra in Indonesia. So very mixed background. I had the pleasure of traveling from a very young age with family all over the world. And I think there was this defining moment at 14 when I spent 6 weeks in Singapore visiting a friend where life was never the same afterwards. It was quite incredible to go back to New Zealand after having been in such a vibrant environment for a decent length of time. And so the travel bug began. And within 2 years, I was on a student exchange program in Copenhagen. And never looked back. So life has been in Europe since then. So although I'm still very much a New Zealander, I'm a very proud Kiwi, very proud of what growing up in New Zealand means in terms of conservation and caring for the environment and all of those important things. My adult life has been in Europe. So, and actually travel. As soon as I finished my studies in Copenhagen, I was in the airline industry working with Aer Lingus, running airline operations. That took me to Sweden, and then that eventually took me to Rome, and then there was a guy with Speedos on a windsurfer and a motorbike and long hair and all of that, and Rome became home.
And you never looked back.
Never looked back, yeah, exactly. So I'm based in Rome. My husband Paolo is from Rome, and our children, although they have 3 passports, will let you know they're Roman. They're born there, they're grown up there. And I've been traveling for my various travel assignments ever since. So working first and foremost with Expedia for 14 years, very, very formative years. Amazing growth, as you can imagine, from 2004. Great leadership. I was very fortunate to work with some of the icons in our industry, such as Ariane Gorin, very closely for a number of years. And eventually moved to corporate travel. So working with the Carlson family in Minneapolis for CWT. I was EVP there, Chief Growth Officer, and we had some really great ventures with China, with Japan, some JVs that we had out there. Very different kind of travel from Expedia and very different from what I'm doing today. And I kind of fell into cruise because someone rang me up one day and said, hey, this is an amazing job, amazing company. And I was like, And they're like, yeah, it's a cruise company. And I was like, no, thank you. Never been on a cruise in my life. And having that New Zealand very kind of conservation background and having seen the big ships in Italy, I was like, no, thank you. That's just not for me. Luckily, I listened and I realized that this was something quite different. And although it's a cruise company, it very much is about exploration and very much about meaningful, purposeful travel. And bringing people places they wouldn't necessarily reach otherwise in a very, very nice way. So, I got on board. I woke up every morning in a different beautiful location and, without having to unpack and go through the airport and all of that stuff. And I was sold. So very happy to have joined Ponant Explorations Group 2 years ago as Deputy Group CEO. And it's been a huge learning curve. So I'm very happy that I said yes and happy to be here today.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's very interesting because I was actually speaking to some previous guests in Edit about how cruise in general, right, is becoming so diverse. And obviously Ponant, right, is so specific in exploration, the size of your ships, the places you go, which to your point are places that you otherwise couldn't get to. I know with Charcot, for example, right, I don't think there's really any other way to get there to the North Pole.
One and only.
Yeah. And so I'm assuming that you don't really compete at a large scale against other water, against other sea. You really do compete with expedition and other 5-star hotel product, et cetera. Is that correct? Would you say you're competing, not just with other luxury exploration and sea, but with land and other discovery options?
I think you're onto something here. I think we have a lot of commonality with land-based exploration expedition type offerings. For example, safari.
Safari,
right?
yeah, okay.
People who want to go off the beaten track, they want to be close to nature, they want to do something new, something iconic that takes you out of everyday life, puts you somewhere that maybe you wouldn't go otherwise, but you have that safety net of having experts and guides on board who know what they're doing, and if something goes wrong, are there to help.
Yeah.
I think that is the commonality we have in that client base. Do we compete with the luxury hotels at sea and the other expedition companies? To some extent, but the way I think about it, we're in that. It's funny because as a marketeer, you don't ever want to be in the middle, but we're kind of in the middle. We're not extreme luxury. We're not a floating palace.
Yeah.
Yet we're not just pure expedition and rough and ready every day. Kind of, we're somewhere in between where you will get off and you will have the opportunity to go and explore with the Zodiacs and the expedition capacity. But you still come back to a very beautiful ship. It's still very elegant, French flair. Everything's included. You don't have to worry about anything. All of the suites have balconies, etc. So you have that luxurious welcome back, but you still are out there exploring. And for that, I think we're kind of unique in where we stand. We're about 14% market share of the under 500 passengers ships at sea.
And how many ships are you in total?
14 plus the 6 vessels that we have through the Aqua Expeditions acquisition from earlier this year.
Fantastic. So what are your thoughts on sort of the current U.S. travel market and international travel, and where you're seeing growth opportunity, where you're not seeing growth? What would you say is sort of those key markets for growth and what you see as far as the stability of demand?
Yeah, no, so US is a key market for us. I know you were speaking to Sam Chamberlain earlier this year, and you would have heard from him firsthand all of the opportunities that we see for this market. I think, if you'd asked me at the beginning of the year, we were a little cautious because obviously there was a lot going on in the domestic market, but we've had a phenomenal year. It's been a great year of growth from the US market outbound for our Ponant destinations. I think particularly since June, since the summer, we've seen really strong demand. And what is that demand for? I think it's a little bit mixed in terms of destinations. Number one, French Polynesia is very strong for us. We have the Paul Gauguin vessel that's iconic in the US market. That continues to be in high demand. It continues to win awards. We're very grateful for that. We did a refit earlier in the year, so we invested quite a lot this year on Paul Gauguin, and that continues to be a driver of demand and volume for us. But I think also there's an awakening to the Charcot. And I think Charcot is, if you don't know about Le Commandant Charcot, which is our, luxury icebreaker, it's the one and only we were saying earlier, the only passenger vessel that can bring you to 90 degrees North Pole. I think it's something that as Americans are awakening to the idea that it exists, there's a growing demand. And we hadn't been great at telling that story earlier. I don't think we had articulated how special she is.
Yeah.
And the activities and the destination and that immersion with the cultures. So if you're in Greenland, we're getting in there at least a month earlier than everyone else. So you're going in there, west coast of Greenland with fresh vegetables and produce after a long winter. The community are really engaging. It's a completely different offering than sort of just, if you will, getting up and seeing some ice and polar bears.
Yeah.
So that's becoming really popular in the US market, and we're seeing more and more demand for that as well.
Walk us through that itinerary just briefly. I'm curious. So where do you start from? Where do you end? How long?
It's funny, I don't even know all our itineraries. Yeah. I mean, the biggest challenge in my role is overseeing our product development.
Yeah.
Why? Because we have these 14 ships, and 12 of them are exploring the globe, all 7 continents, at any time of the year. So it's, if you think about it as a giant jigsaw puzzle, we're going from north to south, east to west. We could be anywhere at any given time because we're not doing A to B.
Okay.
Right? We're not an A to B cruise line. We don't do Rome, Barcelona, or point to point. It's really about exploration and going different places. And so with those 12 ships alone, we have over 400 itineraries.
Wow.
So it's all quite unique. But I think if I was to give you one or two for the Charcot,
Sure.
certainly Greenland is huge. Greenland and then sort of Svalbard, so that northern archipelago above Norway, that part of the world, Iceland. So if you can get that combination of Svalbard, Iceland, Greenland is very popular.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I would say obviously North Pole. North Pole being the only company in the world that can actually bring you to 90 degrees north, and obviously in a very nice way. That is a growing demand from the US market. And we've just introduced from 2027, which Sam has renamed the Polar Express, the North Polar Express. It traditionally had been a 17-night journey.
Okay.
And we've brought that down to 12 nights.
Wow.
And that is very much targeted at the US market.
Yeah.
And knowing that, shorter stay, ability to get up there and get back within a 2-week period.
Is key.
Absolutely. So the Polar Express, or the North Polar
it.
Express. And then the new one that we did earlier this year was the St. Lawrence River. That was frozen January, February. We were up there with the icebreaker, with the Le Commandant Charcot. And I have to say, I was personally on board. It was an absolutely unforgettable moment to sail into Saguenay and to the ice fishing community. And you can imagine there's thousands of people there with their tents and their caravans and their cars, and they've got their ice fishing area.
Yeah.
And in comes the luxury icebreaker, and they were all terrified. They all ran away because they were like, what is this thing? Is it going to stop? Is it going to keep going? Can she stop? And then we stopped, and it was a bit like landing on the moon, because you're sailing through the ice into the village, and everyone kind of scattered away, but then they all came back to see the ship and to touch the ship and engage. And it was such an incredible experience. The people of Saguenay, of Quebec, have such incredible hospitality. They couldn't do enough to, look after our guests and look after us, and built, the carriages to bring us into town and took us out. So it was sort of snowshoeing and out with it was incredible. I mean, there were so many activities, the ice fishing itself, obviously the dog sledding and all of that. It was magical. So I think that is something that's also going to be very popular with North American market, given it's closer to home. So it's not a long flight to get up there. And it's something so unique, once again, that you can only do with us.
And you get the unique orange jacket, Sam was
And you
telling
get
me,
the
right?
jackets,
The orange jacket, which is your conversation piece for forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
amazing.
amazing. Your token of having been on the Charcot.
I was a bit worried. I thought, my goodness, minus 20 degrees. It's how cold is that going to be, right?
Yeah.
It's a long time since I've lived in Stockholm. But actually it was fine. I mean, those jackets are great. And obviously the ship is warm, and it's part of the experience. You come back on board and someone's waiting for you with a warm beverage.
That's great.
You get the warm towel. Everything is very comfortable. So we have an amazing wet room where you can take all your boots and gear off, and there's great heaters, and
wow,
it's a nice
fun.
experience.
What an experience. So I'm sure a lot of this is on the travel advisor community, but when you guys are selling direct to a customer, how do you convert somebody that's never taken a cruise before? As you mentioned, you had never taken a cruise before. They are, experiential travel is obviously such a big focus, and everybody is having a moment, right? Everybody wants to explore. Everybody wants to have sort of once in a lifetime type experiences, which of course you guys provide in spades. How do you help convert somebody? What do you tell them when they say, I'm not a cruiser, but I'm interested in this? How do you convert that guest?
Yeah, I think a lot of that lies with, as you said, the travel community. Being a relatively small brand in the US market, we really rely on our retail partners, on our trade partners to help us match, the right clients with us. We're so fortunate today that we have a travel community that are so tuned into their client base, and they know exactly what is a good fit. And so it's often them coming to us to say, look, we think, here's a great match, and being able to convert those guests based on things they've done for them before, because they have that high level of trust, right? So it's that trust that can get them across the line.
Yeah.
And likewise for us, if we have direct customers who maybe haven't been on a cruise line before, but somehow have made their way to us, I think it's really explaining to them day by day how things work, and that you have the freedom of choice. Because I think one of the barriers for me personally had also been this notion of you have to do everything every day, and there's queues, and you've got to get on and off, and it's a nightmare. When we explain what a human-sized ship looks like, and that you can actually be in the port and just walk over the gang bridge into town and come back at your leisure before you depart. You don't have to do the excursions, but you do have the guides and the naturalists there if you so wish, right? And that we offer choice.
Yeah.
So you can still wake up and figure out what you want to do on the day. I think that is what gets people across the line, and that you don't have to book your restaurant in advance. And it's very free. And I think that freedom is what people are looking for when they've never been on a cruise before. You don't want to be part of something where you're like, you've got to get on the bus at 7 a.m.
Exactly. Which is what everybody thinks of when you think of excursions, but excursions off of cruise ships.
Right.
Typically, right, everybody is sort of like thinking about, you have to be there at that time, don't be late. And it feels very regimented. You're not like that at all.
Not at all. And I think that is the biggest barrier, because we've all been there, right? We've all been on some tour or some guided something that it was like, get me out of here, and there was no way out. So it's not like that at all. And I think that is what really helps people understand that they can be independent on board.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love it. It's interesting to see as well, because we've seen such an increase in solo travelers. Mm-hmm. So solo travelers, not just in North America, particularly in the UK, we're seeing a huge surge.
Interesting.
Women traveling alone. Or women traveling alone, not alone, but staying in their own cabin with friends. Mm-hmm. So it's what we call sort of solo travelers with friends.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that, celebrating big birthdays, getting out there. Maybe they've got time, but they still feel that sense of security, of having a safety net once again with being on board, and someone's going to kind of like look out for you, right? So we're seeing a lot of that, and that's something we're actually doubling down on, and offering a lot of capacity to offer solo travelers the possibility to pay for just the one passenger in the cabin, rather than what usually there's a supplement.
Right.
So we have over 200 departures right now for solos, where you would only pay for the one person, not the cabin itself.
Wow, interesting. And the other obvious benefit is you only have to unpack once.
100%.
You don't have to, when you're touring around and you have to keep unpacking and packing, it's very frustrating and trying to, figure out how to fit everything into your suitcase. Yeah. It's like, this is...
So as a road warrior, someone who travels virtually every week of the year, it's such a joy for me to go on board. This summer I was on board with my family, and it was backyard, it was med, so it wasn't anything too strenuous. But I swear I didn't even check the itinerary in great detail. Like, I just knew I had to show up, right? Yeah. I just had to be in Malta on that day, and I didn't have to worry about anything. I didn't have to worry about visas or, like you said, packing there's something really lovely about that. And I knew that it didn't matter where we'd go, it would be great, because we go to these secondary, tertiary places. So even if it is med, I'm still discovering stuff I've never seen before.
Absolutely.
You're still going to touch 3 or 4 different countries in a week or 10 days. And see them from a different way, because you see things differently from the sea.
Yeah, exactly. Everything looks different from the sea. I mean, even sitting here in Cannes at ILTM, right, if we went out right now on a yacht and we looked back at it, it's a completely different perspective than being from the land looking at the sea.
100%.
And you see things that you otherwise may have never seen, even if you've been here a dozen times, Yeah, absolutely. So how does Aqua Expeditions, obviously I had Francesco on the podcast. He was a wonderful guest. Tell me a little bit about Aqua Expeditions, of how it fits into the Ponant umbrella.
Yeah, Aqua Expeditions has just been a real joy for us. From the moment we met Francesco, he's such an incredible entrepreneur. Him and his family have built a really incredible business over the last 17 years. And they're so purposeful and considerate and thought through in the way that they expand their product offering by really, I think he said once, I don't pass through a destination, I go there, I live there, and I build that product end to end. And you can feel that when you're on board as vessels. I'm not sure if you've been on board yet.
I haven't yet. Okay. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's quite incredible. As part of diligence, I went out to the Amazon and got on Aquanera. And I didn't quite know what to expect. I was thinking 3 nights, like who does a cruise for 3 nights? But then I got it. Like, you get out there and it's just so incredibly immersive.
Yeah.
And you're working with crew who live in that destination. They come from that destination. They've lived there forever. They know everything that moves. They'll find you the sloths. Yeah. They'll find you the piranhas. You'll go fishing. You'll do amazing things that you would never normally do in your normal life.
Okay.
The cuisine is spectacular. It's not sort of buffet style. It's more made on the spot, and there'll be 1 or 2 options. But very, very good, very, very good cuisine, basic ingredients, but making amazing things. And it's a mixture of that being in the destination with destination experts, with that knowledge and care in these very remote parts of the world that make it so spectacular. So total joy. They joined the group on the 15th of January this year.
Okay.
we rebranded to become Ponant Explorations Group.
Okay.
Because we have the Ponant Explorations and our explorer ships and our icebreaker. We have Porgagun Cruises.
Yep.
And now obviously with Aqua Expeditions, that fits nicely under the umbrella so that we can think about what else. You know, we're becoming an exploration company rather than a cruise company.
Right.
Somewhere down the line.
Totally. Could be safari, could be other things,
It
right?
could be.
Anything,
Yeah. And so I think the fit between Ponant and Aqua Expeditions has just been a match made in heaven in terms of values, in terms of what we're offering our clients. You know, we're both out there looking for exploration, things that are new, things that are different. You know, I was sitting with Francesco over lunch and he was showing me some photos of his last voyage. They took the guests into Papua New Guinea and they had 600 people from the tribe welcome a group of 30 coming on land.
Wow.
You know, that's kind of thing, you can't make it happen unless you're really working with the best of the best.
Totally.
So very, very happy of the partnership. And we're actually starting to offer some of the Aqua product to our French customer base. So you'll know that at Ponant we have French and English on board, most of our destinations. And to be able to offer that experience to some of our French guests. We've in-housed some of the Aqua product and we're doing some departures for Mekong and Amazon to offer that experience to them as well.
It's amazing. Now, pivoting back to Ponant around cuisine and food and beverage, which I'm sure you have extraordinary offerings considering you're French. Talk to us a little bit about what guests can expect from a food and beverage perspective on a Ponant exploration.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, as you said, like we're very fortunate to have great roots in terms of our French flair and hospitality. We do partner with the Ducasse, Alain Ducasse School of Ducasse, and so that's our standard.
Okay.
We do have the only floating Ducasse restaurant at sea on Le Commandant Charcot.
Okay.
So we have sort of always two choices. We have our French restaurant on board, and there's usually a buffet, more relaxed, more informal second option on board the ships as well.
Okay.
So if you're looking for that more kind of comfort food, you've come back from second expedition, you're tired, you just want to have a hamburger before you go to bed, you can totally do that, or you can order room service 24/7. So there are some good food options on board depending on what you feel like on the day. And of course, there's always the gala dinner and so on that we do as well.
And access to great French cuisine
Absolutely.
At any point if somebody wants.
Yeah, and we're very fortunate being part of the Artemis group. So obviously Artemis, they also have great offerings in terms of fine wines.
Yep.
We have an incredible Chateau Latour collection of wines on board our ships. So there's a lot to choose from.
That's amazing. And that really creates it's the full experience, right? If you want a real sense of place, obviously cuisine is such a strong indicator, for sense of place. And so being able to have fine wine with fabulous food all together in an unbelievable setting on the water, right, where you're looking back, I think is so unique, especially in cruise.
Yeah.
Where that's another thing that I think people who have not cruised before, obviously, they, like you said, they think about a buffet and they're like, that's not what I'm looking for.
Right.
So,
waiting in line.
Yeah, waiting in line with a tray.
Cantina tray, exactly.
Yeah, with a cantina tray, exactly.
Yeah, it's not like that at all, luckily.
Absolutely. Can we talk a little bit about the travel advisor community and how you guys work with them? Obviously, being here at ILTM, and of course, we're Virtuoso Travel Week together as well. I'm assuming it's such an important part of the business. Can you tell us a little bit about how you work with travel advisors and how they help sell the product?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, we really rely on them a lot for the US market, given that we're still growing as a brand. I think there's some incredible partnerships where we're working very closely in all of the different markets with our sales team, so they're very, very much on the ground. We have a portal, so we're offering all of the various product offerings and materials that we'll pre-create for them to help them, obviously save time and getting newsletters out or distribution out to their client bases. And very proud to have had over 300 people on board from North America this year on various departures and sailings or ship visits. Obviously, it's very hard to sell something well unless you know what it is.
Totally.
And so we're very, very keen to get travel counselors on board to understand the product so that they can really represent us well, knowing how to match what we offer to their client base. I think we're not for everyone. Once again, it's multicultural, meaning there's a mix of cultures on board. It's not just Americans or North Americans on board. We have a very substantial side of US, but we also have a lot of European travelers. We have about 20% market share coming from the APAC region, in particular Australia and New Zealand.
Wow.
And we have a growing market in China. So it is a mixed environment on board. But I think that's part of the, those who come to us, they're looking for that enrichment, that exposure to different cultures. They're curious by nature.
Yeah.
It's a learning experience as well as a sort of educational holiday. So that's something we need to be able to convince the travel counselors and help them understand so that get the right client mix on board.
And what would you say that you tell them when they ask you, okay, I have a customer that's looking for exploration or expedition, and they have these 3 organizations that they're looking at, right? Mm-hmm. What do you tell them, if they have not been on a Ponant ship yet, what would you tell them to differentiate Ponant? Like what would be the selling point, that differentiator between your competition?
Yeah, I think I'd go back to what I said earlier. Like,
yep.
Do they want to just have their gumboots on all day and they're just out there and
yep.
exploring on land? Is it about that? Or is it about, is it more about the cuisine and the dressing up and the elegant dinners?
Gala.
Exactly. Or is it something in between? Because once again, I said again, you never want to be in the middle. But in this case, I really feel like we are, which isn't a bad place to be because if it's a sense of exploration, they want to do some activities, adventure, see something new, that's us. And I think, the one thing I think that really differentiates us is where we go.
Yeah.
And I can't help but say where you go matters.
Of course. Actually, maybe matters the most.
In a way, right? Because you don't,
yeah.
I mean, unless you're a diehard cruiser from the
right.
past, you would you'd go after the ship. That's your ship. You would follow her around. You'd go on board. You'd do all the itineraries.
Yeah.
But actually, when you look at travel, you usually start with the destination.
Totally.
And that's what we have. We have the destinations. I mean, we literally roam the globe year in, year out. And it's kind of like take it or leave it, because if you don't take it now, you might not find it again. And I often have people coming up to me saying, hey, you know that itinerary you had in India last year? And I'm like, yeah.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Like
totally.
It comes and goes, right? We're all over the place. And so it might come back in 2 years from now. But
you don't know whether it will or
exactly.
not. Yeah.
And you're asking me about itineraries.
Yeah.
I don't know all of the itineraries because they're constantly changing. Even if you do a regular, one of our core products, let's call it something in the Med, like a Venice to Athens, we'll still change it. I mean, right now we'll mix it up. We'll have different enrichment on board. We work with many different partners. We work with the Explorers Club out of New York.
Yep.
We're getting some incredible explorers on board our ships, telling their story, engaging with the clients, really like helping them understand the adventures they've been on in maybe the destination where they've been exploring in the past, be it East Africa or be it the Kimberley in Australia.
Yeah.
Amazing knowledge. We have the Smithsonian journeys. So we have some English-only departures with Smithsonian. Once again, we have all of that knowledge coming on board and they're really enriching those cruises. Or something like right now we're building for 2027, I think it might have just opened this week, a caring cruise. So working with our sister brands, we're going to have a sailing around Italy. It's going to include enrichment and onboard themes from Gucci, from Genoa, from Bottega Veneta, from Formulato, and Brioni. So amazing, right?
Amazing.
Like who else can offer that?
Yeah.
So I think the destination and the way that we go about making those destinations meaningful is really what is core to us. And so for the travel community, for them to understand why we're different and making sure that their clients are open-minded, they're quite happy being on board with mixed nationalities.
Totally.
And they're up for it, right? Because it's not for everyone.
So you just went through a relatively recent digital transformation with website and architecture and digital architecture. How do you guys see AI sort of coming into play in how, I guess, you book itineraries, how you use it operationally, whatever comes to mind, honestly? I'm just curious to know how, considering AI is such a hot topic, right? How do you guys see yourselves using it?
Yeah, so AI, I mean, it's obviously been a focus for everyone for a while now, and it continues to be interesting for us to discover different ways in which we can engage. For us, I mean, the way we think about guest experience, we're very small, right? We have 200 people on board, maybe less. So we don't need technology in the same way that maybe the big ships do to really know who you have in front of you and know what they're looking for. We really want to keep that human, right? Mm-hmm. It has to be, because that's one of the strengths of our crew on board. They know our guests. They know what they want. They recognize them instantaneously. It's not like having 4,000 plus passengers on a ship.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, AI hasn't really been the key focus. It's more, like you mentioned, the back end with the reservation system, things like pricing, revenue management, opportunities to understand maintenance needs for our vessels.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's great.
There's a lot we can do there. Fleet planning, it's such a jigsaw puzzle. It's so labor intensive. It takes up a lot of time to get that jigsaw puzzle right of all of those different itineraries, all of those different places we could go. It's very hard to choose. And at the same time, add to that puzzle, you're not just looking at destination A to B, but you're looking at your day by day. Where do you stop? What do you do? What's your vessel speed? How do you reduce your CO2 emissions?
Yeah.
The fuel impact, the distance, how many days at sea, what are your source markets? It's a massive, massive puzzle. And we really believe that AI could be quite key for us here as well.
Yeah, that seems like a phenomenal opportunity.
Yeah, opportunity cost versus trade-offs, et cetera, right? Like it's big data, anything to do with data.
Yeah.
So very excited about what that could bring for us. I think also in terms of the booking engine, it's just the beginning. We literally went live on the 17th of November. So we're still in that hypercare phase.
Yeah.
Very excited, very promising results so far. And we know that's just the beginning in terms of other tech capabilities with distribution, better API connectivity, basic stuff, but definitely stuff that will open up doors for us in the year ahead.
Something that I see as far as AI being, especially when it comes to booking and creating itineraries. Right now, you can go to ChatGPT, you can go to Claude or your preferred AI agent, right? You can type in that I'm looking for a, beach vacation for my kids that are 8 and 10. And I, want different activities to do, each day. And I want to minimize my travel in between, right? Like we were just talking about where cruise and sea become so important. And especially as it begins to learn more about me based on my account utilization within the AI platforms, it's able to, propose itineraries and trips, but of course, none of it's bookable right now. They're dabbling in it, of course, with partnerships with Expedia and Booking Holdings, et cetera. And obviously down the road, as they begin to have access to real inventory platforms, they'll be able to book direct. And obviously with the best content, right, and the quickest response, we'll be able to create incredible bookable itineraries. But I see that from the Ponant side of things as well. Like if you're trying to explain, maybe you don't know what you're looking for, right? And that's one thing, and it's able to help you, based on what it knows about you, guide you towards a particular itinerary that might be very interesting. Or if you're using it at the broader scale outside of the Ponant umbrella, and you're just searching for a type of expedition or exploration or just trip in general, right? Being able to get more customers aware of your itineraries, right? And the more detail, the more information it has on those itineraries, the more it's able to propose those to possible guests. So it could be, I see it as a great opportunity to get, another channel, so to speak, of additional guests, in the Ponant world. So
yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because if you go back to the early days of internet, and how people search for travel, it goes back to what I said earlier. A lot of it's destination focused.
Absolutely.
And then OTA came along, so the online travel agencies, and suddenly you had this broader choice because it was easy access to a lot of choice to see very quickly what you had, hotel, airlines, availability for what that destination was or those destinations you were researching. And then we had Meta, right? So they were scraping everything, but often you'd still go back and book direct.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that billboard effect was always kind of the selling point of the OTAs, because you would say, okay, you book with us, we take a commission, but 4 other people are going to book direct. And I think similar with AI, right? It depends how it plays out. But right now, as you said, it's not really helping us to really close the deal, if you will. It's very hard to book through AI.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that's unique to Ponant in our group is that we have so much content. Like really, this is another AI opportunity we're looking at. We have, call it 12 years of photo ambassador content from every single departure that we've had. And that's like video, photos. So we're content is king. This is a huge opportunity to really go through that resource and make sure that we're using it and leveraging it in a great way. It became very clear when we built our new website. Most of the time, the website companies, they say to us, like, the biggest challenge for companies is they build the new website, and then what content are they going to put on it? And, for us, it's almost the reverse. We have so much content. We needed to build the new website to be able to get it out there and actually really do these destinations and itineraries justice and make it easier to search for the right trip for our guests who are looking online.
I remember when I was sitting in the office in New York with him, and he said, "Oh, content's not a problem. We actually have too much content." I'm like, I don't know. I've never heard anybody say that, and it was true. I mean, your library on the campus is just unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. I mean, honestly, not a day goes by that someone doesn't send me an incredible photo on WhatsApp or through Teams. We have these incredible photographers on board. It's inspiring, the content we have. It's amazing. I mean, but it is actually one of these things that we're looking at and saying, oh, goodness, what do we do with it all?
What do you do? It's great to have. It's much better than the alternative problem. I can tell you that.
100%.
So.
But I think also on the similar vein, right, depends on who you're targeting as well, because there are other new channels opening up and, it's if we're trying to look for a younger audience, more active, engaged audience, it's going to be also the influencers, the TikToks of the world that are also going to get our images out there.
Yeah.
It's often one little video clip that goes viral that has more coverage than anything else.
100%. Yeah, I was just talking about it where there's like produced content, right? Produced content could be in print, could be on your website, could be things that you're putting out. Instagram's becoming a little bit more polished. TikTok is definitely on the more raw side, right? Where it's turning into what Instagram kind of used to be. But yeah, it's being able to make sure you have content for all of those needs. And then, of course, sometimes it's letting the influencers who really are able to convert guests, use their channels and their raw content to sell it. Like you said, that small snippet could sell a Charcot expedition.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. My last question is really what are your goals for the organization for the next, let's say year to year and a half? Besides, creating more extraordinary new itineraries and that sort of thing. What are really your goals for growth for Ponant over the next year and a half?
Yeah, so doubling down on what we're doing right now, strategic markets. Mm-hmm. Ironically, the US or North America is one of those, right? The size of the market is enormous. I think we've just scratched the surface, and we're really, really so appreciative of the year we've just had in North America. It's been a record year for us. I really feel like Ponant is now finally on the map, and travel advisors in the community understand what we have to offer. And I think there was a fear in the past that we were too French, too awkward, too different, too difficult. But I think all of that's sort of gone. And we're finally starting to see really great traction. So that will continue to be a really big focus with Sam and the team in North America for the year ahead. And at the same time, that comes with a need to continue to invest in our guest experience, making sure that we understand that multicultural mix on board and its subtleties. The way that you would serve a French guest is different from the way you would serve an American guest, different expectations. Yourself, you sit down at a restaurant in America and you want that glass of water with ice cubes immediately. It doesn't happen on a French ship. So how do you get those subtleties right so that we're looking after all of our guests in a way that they want to be looked after? So that's a focus. So it's hospitality. It's growing our strategic markets, US. We're seeing great growth also from the UK. It's still a small market for us, ironically, the two biggest cruise markets in the world. You would think. So that's something else we're doubling down on. And then I think just this itinerary puzzle that I mentioned, I think it's a bit of a back of the house one, but I think we can do so much more in terms of bringing new products to market if we can reduce the time it takes to build that very complex fleet puzzle that I mentioned.
Very cool. Well, I always like to finish every episode with 3 rapid fire questions. I've heard some of the best answers in the podcast from these 3 questions, so I'm excited to hear your input. First question is pretty easy. What personal travel are you most excited about next?
Yeah, so I've got an 80th birthday in Phuket on the calendar. My father will be 80 in August.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And being on the other side of the world from family, that's always hard. So over a year ago now, I booked an incredible villa. It's outrageously beautiful. Can't wait to get there. So amazing. That has the kind of the
when
4
is that?
Fs. So end of July.
Oh, wow.
End of
That's
July.
Great.
It's 2 weeks. Everyone will be there. Family from Australia, New Zealand, Europe. It's a big
Easier
one.
for them to get to you than you.
Well, it's kind of halfway.
Yeah,
halfway.
true.
And I think it's got that mix of fabulous location. It's fabulous F&B, hospitality. It's family. That's what I'm really looking forward to.
Sounds like it's going to be a very remarkable 80th birthday.
It should be.
It should be amazing. the show's all about moving forward with luxury travel innovation, right? It's innovation in travel. But for a moment, I like to pause and take a look back because you can't really look forward until you understand the past, right? What do you miss about the glamorous days of travel?
Oh, the glamorous days of travel. To me, it was space.
Yeah.
That sense of space, because it's so crowded everywhere now, right? Like you get on an airline, and even before AI, they'd figured out revenue management, right? So like those seats are all full now.
Yeah.
There was a day you could get on and find those 3 empty rows on a long haul flight. That doesn't happen anymore. Yeah. And the airports and there's just people everywhere, which is another reason why small ship sailing is so fantastic, because you can avoid some of that.
Avoid the crowds.
But I really miss that space. And I think the other thing that I miss is personality, meaning we're all becoming very much the same. Yeah. And you know, I understand that there's been a lot of consolidation in the last 20 plus years. Airlines, alliances, hotel groups, it's all become much more consolidated. You kind of lose the flavor of what does it mean to be on a national airline carrier. Yes, there'll be some little thing that lets you know that you're flying on a German aircraft, or you have your Swiss chocolate, or you have your whatever it is. But it's all very homogenized. Yeah. And I feel like we've lost a lot of personality, both in terms of even independent properties. They're going away, right? Like there's so much consolidation. It's very hard to. How often do you stay in independent properties?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
rare.
It's rare these days. They're a part of a consortia or a group or a chain or something. And I think we've lost a little bit of flavor there.
Yeah.
It's become quite vanilla.
Sense of place and authenticity, you know? Totally 100%. Makes sense. All right. Well, we always have to conclude with moving forward, since it's innovation in travel. So what innovation in travel doesn't exist today that you think should, and does not have to be technology?
Yeah, I think, you know, we're getting there, but loyalty. I mean, true value and loyalty offerings. You know, some say it's the biggest scam on the planet, some of these things, right? Yeah. Others, they live by it. They only book within loyalty, within their programs. If you think about how complex it is and how many different apps you need and if you're a road warrior, you're traveling frequently, it's still very, very difficult to follow. Yeah. And I think we're getting there with the likes of One Key from Expedia, where they're starting to offer, obviously, a broader travel assortment through one program. But I think a lot more could be done with loyalty still to make, you know, ease the lives of travelers. And then because you sparked me thinking of my father, I know he would do anything to go to space. so he
space
may
travel.
Be 80, space travel. Like space travel, I know it exists already, right?
Yeah,
but
very small. Yeah.
Seeing that move forward to being more accessible, I'm surprised it hasn't happened faster.
I agree with you. I've also heard teleportation as an answer on that, but maybe space will be first.
Maybe, yeah, just maybe, or Mars.
Or Mars. Thank you, Belinda.
Yeah.
Such a pleasure having you here.
Likewise, thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode of Luxury Travel Innovators. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. See you next time.